My name is Emma. I come from what you'd call a single-parent household. When I was a child, my father passed away, and since then, my mom has been raising me on her own. I've never felt sad about being part of a single-parent family. Although I couldn't spend much time with my hard-working mom, I genuinely admired her as a woman, as she labored tirelessly to maintain the architectural design firm she and my father had started. I aspire to be a woman like my mom, a go-getter in the professional world. However, one day, a terrible event occurred that trampled on my admiration. My boyfriend David is 3 years older than me, whom I met at a social gathering during college. His family is quite wealthy, and he himself managed to land a job at a bank through his connections. He's been working as an elite banker. Especially since we started dating, he's been very generous, showering me with gifts and taking me to fancy restaurants. He can be a bit indecisive at times, but he's kind and a wonderful guy. Recently, David and I talked about our marriage. I just graduated college this spring and started working, so getting married to David right away seems difficult. Plus, I still want some time for myself. But we both agreed that it would be nice to become a family together in the not-so-distant future. So today, I'm meeting David's parents, who will be my future family. In order to report our intentions to marry and to say hello, I'm visiting his parents' home for the first time. To make a good impression on his affluent middle-aged parents, I put a lot of effort into my outfit, hairstyle, and makeup to look charming, yet natural. I hope to be recognized by his parents as a woman suitable for David. With these thoughts in mind, I head towards the front door to leave the house. Mom, I'm heading out. I'm going to visit David's house today. Oh, right. Make sure to be polite. My mom, who's working from home today, looks up from computer and said, I know. See you later. I leave the house feeling excited. After taking a train and a bus, I arrive at David's house in the neighboring town. It's a huge house, just like out of a fairy tale. I had David confirm his parents' favorite cake shop beforehand, and I bought a cake there. I ring the doorbell of his house. Ah, Emma, we've been expecting you. Welcome. David greets me with a gentle smile, and I step into his house. When I'm shown into the living room, I realize even more how spacious and grand the house is. Not just the size of the house, but also the interior decor is so elegant and upscale that I can't help but feel the financial power of David's father, an executive at a major bank. Nice to meet you. My name is Emma. I am slightly intimidated by the difference in the grandeur between this house and mine, but still, I smile and bow my head to greet them. Welcome, Emma. We're pleased to meet you. Please have a seat. I'll prepare some tea, so please wait a moment. Emma, I'm David's father. Welcome to our home. Please make yourself comfortable. David's parents are kind people, just like I imagined. They seem to be the perfect family in a fairy tale world. We started our conversation over a lovely aromatic tea, accompanied by the cake I had brought. His mother was a great talker, and his father was a good listener, and David, who occasionally interjected, while nodding along to my stories. I thought this harmonious time would last forever. But the moment the topic of my family came up, the atmosphere changed drastically. So, you lost your father at the age of 5, and then your mother raised you alone, Emma? She must be a wonderful woman. I respect her as a fellow mother. The fact that you've become such a wonderful woman is a testament to your mother's upbringing. We need to learn from her as parents. Yes, my mother is indeed my role model, I replied. They were praising both my mother and me, and I thought we could have a good relationship with his family. But just when I thought so, David's mother changed the tone. However, she started, coming from a single-parent household and being self-employed, I'm afraid it's not quite suitable for you to become David's wife. With these words, David's father silently nodded in agreement. Oh, well, I was shocked. They had just praised me, and now they were using the word unsuitable. I didn't know what to say and instinctively turned to David. Mom, Dad, not this again. What does it matter, her family situation? It's a minor fact. David defended me, but his parents softly denied whatever he said. No matter the reason, we can't trust a family with only one parent. We'd be troubled if we were to ask to lend money because of financial difficulties. David's father started making a disgusted face, imagining an unfounded scenario where we would ask him for money. Besides, it's not common for a single mother to be able to send her daughter to college. It makes us suspicious if there was another man's support involved. We can't accept a loose woman as a family member. Our family has been bankers since my grandfather's time. David's mother spoke ill of my mother, whom she had never met or even seen. Bankers value trust above all else, you know. Their words, which were not outright slander, hurt even more. David tried to fight back, but it ended with him losing the argument, leaving me out while the three of them argued. We can tolerate you dating her just for fun, but you need to rethink about marrying her. The lifestyle levels are too different between you and this girl. I think you'll end up breaking up due to differences eventually. David couldn't say anything back. He just silently listened to his parents. Finally, he turned to me. With his head bowed, he said, "I'm sorry, Emma. I can't marry you after all." What? I'm from a single-parent family, but do I have to give up marrying you for that reason? I don't want to say this either. Please, don't blame me. You knew about my family situation from a long time ago, didn't you? You even met my mother. Do you also think that my family and I are unsuitable for your family? David, who was usually indecisive in times like this, said nothing. But I think his silence was the clearest answer. He must have thought that marrying me wouldn't be a good match, just like his parents said. I felt sad. I never thought that not only his family, but even David would reject me just because I come from a single-parent household. Emma, please, just go home, he finally said with his strained voice. Honestly, I didn't want to stay here a second longer either. I'm leaving. I'm sorry for the trouble, I said, even though no one tried to stop me. They probably felt relieved that I left. With tears streaming down my face, I retraced my steps and went straight back home. When I got home, my mother noticed my tear-streaked face and asked me what happened. There was no point in lying to her. She knew where I had been and what I was doing. It felt like I was dishonoring my mother's way of life, and I really didn't want to tell her, but I told her everything. As expected, my mother was infuriated by the harsh treatment I had received. Well, so that's the kind of family they are. It seems like your boyfriend David was just going along with them. Certainly, a marriage with a guy like that wouldn't last long, so I think it's better not to marry him, she said. Mom, it must have been tough. You did well. Despite the terrible things she herself had been told, my mother still worried about me and hugged me. Then she asked me about David's father's job as a banker. Which bank does David's father work for? I remember the name of the bank clearly, as David often bragged about it. When I told her, she seemed to understand something. Emma, your mom might not earn a lot, and you don't have a father in the house. It's okay to feel unlucky about that. But remember, you should never feel embarrassed or inferior. After your father left, I raised you, always believing this. So I will never forgive David and his family, she said. Even though I had cried my eyes out on the way home, tears began to well up again. My mother's words reminded me of something important. I love my mother very much. I admire her hard work, and I want to be just like her someday. It's ridiculous to deny my admiration for her, for the sake of David and his family, who trampled on it for such a trivial reason. The next day, my mother said to me, I checked, and as I thought, our company does have dealings with David's father's bank. I don't want to deal with a bank where the father of a man who dumped my daughter so harshly works. So I'm going to cancel the contract. I'll explain the whole situation. I don't know what will happen, but if they say trust is important, let's make sure they understand that they no longer have my trust. She called the bank right when it opened, bypassed the loan officer, and asked for the branch manager. Branch manager? We're terminating our dealings with you. Yes, I'm sorry it's so sudden, but it seems that one of your officers has severely mistreated my daughter. If you're willing to hear the details, I'd be happy to come and explain it personally. What do you say? I heard my mother's conversation just before I went to work. I knew she was going to terminate the contract, but I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't understand what it meant until a few days later, when I got a call from David, asking me to meet him at a nearby park. David and his parents were at the park. His parents glared at me. David asked me in a troubled voice. My dad suddenly got fired, and when I asked why, they said it was because of my girlfriend. What on earth have you done, Emma? In those words, I understood everything. What it means to sever a contract, what it means for a banker to lose trust. It all became clear to me. If someone who lends and borrows money based on trust loses that trust, they essentially lose their livelihood. If there's a cause that erodes the vital trust from customers, it must be eliminated. In other words, it means his father was expelled from the company as the root of all evils that undermine trust. What I discovered later was that David and his father, just like they did with me, looked down on customers as they were poor, causing all sorts of trouble. It seemed it was only a matter of time before they would be let go. The final straw was just a call from my mother. This wasn't something I accomplished through my own strength. I don't possess such power, but it was something my family did for me. I should tell him this, proudly and confidently. You insulted my mother, so she retaliated with her power. What? There's no way a company run by the parents of a poor girl like you could have enough influence to get me fired just by filing a complaint. Indeed, the company run in my parents' name isn't that large, but my mother's influence isn't limited to just one design office she runs. Even if she isn't directly involved in management, she's in a position to influence companies. Now, I can fully understand the meaning of all the transactions my mother had with the bank at the time. I'm sure it's something like this. My mom's company itself indeed isn't large. However, my mom is also registered as a non-executive director in several companies my grandfather runs. So, what it means to have enough influence over you guys is that all contracts with my grandfather's companies were also terminated. I listed a few of the companies my grandfather manages. The color drained from his father's face quickly. That's ridiculous. There's nothing strange about it. After all, he's my grandfather, right? Why would he want to deal with a bank that disrespected his granddaughter and daughter? It seemed they finally understood why they were fired. Suddenly, their attitude completely changed. They fell to their knees on the spot, pressing their foreheads to the ground and sobbing. But even with such a spectacle in front of me, I could only think of them as pitiful. David clung to me, begging, Emma, I'm sorry for all the things. I was truly serious about wanting to marry you. I just thought I wanted you to go home for a while because my parents were being difficult. Lining up such lame excuses, it was as if he was trying to save himself, at least. But I've given up on him too. I shrugged off his feeble arm and told him, My mom is amazing, isn't she? She's my role model. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Someone who would disrespect her. I really hate you now. I'm going home because my mom worries. Goodbye, and please never contact me again. Devoid of the strength chasing after me, he could only silently watch me leave, kneeling in the same pose as his parents. After that, his family, unemployed all of a sudden, seemed unable to change their standard of living all at once. They started selling off their cars and luxury goods, one after another, and in the end, they even had to let go of their house. Hearing the story that my mother and grandfather had gathered through the bank, I felt deep down that I dodged a bullet by not marrying that man. he will likely continue to live burdened with his half-baked pride and continue to struggle financially. I found myself wishing he would learn to live within his means, and my mother and I shared a laugh over this. As for me, I just start to live in the working society. There is more things that I can't do than can. But I've learned a lot from this experience. Of course, I want to sharpen my judgment when it comes to choosing partner, but I also want to become stronger myself. Even so, my goal remains unchanged. I want to be a cool working woman like my mother, to protect and support my family like my mom. I want to work hard every day to become a strong woman.